Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Welcome to Arizona Barrio Stories and Latino USA TV. Welcome to this platform, a very unique platform. We love your stories and we love your photos. Thank you for sharing them with us. Today, we are welcoming David Baraluna with Arizona AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, Salud, Dinero y Amor. Thank you, David, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Irma. It's a pleasure. As always, we address topics that are very important. Today is not going to be the exception. We are talking about long-term care. And just giving a little context, we have been in this series addressing retirement bound, and we address topics that have to do with retirement, particularly sources of income that we can think or should think about in preparing for retirement. And we're coming to a close on this series. This is going to be the last show on retirement bound, and we'll get started with a new series. It's going to be a good one. So let's get into long-term care insurance. So we're going to emphasize long-term care. This is a topic that perhaps is very common. It happens a lot, but a lot of times we don't talk about it. We don't like to think about it. But sooner or later, and it tends to happen, there's going to be the need to take care of someone. Your parents, a loved one, a friend that can no longer take care of his or herself due to an illness, a condition, what have you. It happens a lot. When I think about it, I think of both of my grandparents, one of my grandfather. I think of an aunt, and I think of kids that were born with some kind of condition that needed 24/7 care. Well, that's sometimes we refer to it as caregiving, right? Or caring for somebody else. And we just want to make sure that people understand that in technical terms is called long-term care. How does that sound?
It sounds good. You know, sometimes I think we don't think about it because we put it in the back of our minds and then we scramble when something happens and we think, oh no, what are we going to do?
Right. And one thing that we would like to highlight on this topic, which by the way is very important for AARP. We have been advocating for this matters for a long time, is that long-term care is not covered by insurance. In other words, by your insurance health plan, you know, the typical ones that we tend to have via access, via the employer, individual market, the marketplace. Those type of health insurance do not cover long-term care. And a lot of times people expect it to be covered, and it's not. So we need to be mindful that it's not covered. That's why, though it's hard to think of something like this long-term or for the future, we tend not to like to think about it. I think we do well to think about it. I've been thinking about it, you know. So let's give some definitions of what is long-term care. It's assistance with activities and instrumental activities of daily living. Sometimes they refer to them as ADL, and this is needed by older adults and those with disabilities for independent living. And we already understand and know, we've done research, that people prefer to age in place. They don't want to go somewhere, right? So, but a lot of times they need the care, so who is going to provide the care? This could include bathing, dressing, toileting, mobility, care for incontinence, eating, housework, money, and medications matters. Shopping for groceries or clothes, using communication devices, hello, these days with technology, caring for pets, responding to emergency alerts. So these things, sometimes there comes a point when somebody just cannot carry on these activities. So therefore, there's a need for someone to step in and care for them. I'm sure you've seen, and actually off the air, you and I were talking about a particular case of someone you know, right?
Yeah, and I think back many, many years ago, when somebody older in our family got ill, the family immediately stepped in, and there were people surrounding that person to take over.
It's interesting. At ARP, I just saw some data, and look at this. What this data shows: 92% of people in nursing homes, 92% are white.
Because
think about that.
Because follow that up.
Well, that means in our culture, it could be a money issue because it is extremely expensive to have somebody in a nursing home. Fortunately, there is a way to bring the caregiver home if it's a paid caregiver, so the person doesn't have to end up in a nursing home. But what that tells us is that culturally we prefer to keep our loved ones at home, and we are willing to pay a very high human price to take care of our loved ones. So that I was struck actually by that data. 92% are of the white race. It's interesting, but on the one hand, it doesn't mean that we don't need, the long-term care. We need it as much as any other group, but it tends to happen that we Latinos, Hispanic, Mexican Americans, we tend to believe in. But again, I have to say, it takes a big toll. And I mean, even you were relating to me a case where the person literally died, of course, of another condition, but she was also taking care of the husband, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So who are the caregivers and where does it take place? Number one, the caregivers are the unpaid caregivers, which are family members. That to me is the majority, I think, especially in our culture. Paid caregivers, this could be nurses, home health, or home care aides, and therapists. So there is such a thing as paid caregivers and unpaid caregivers. Where does it take place? At home, it could take place at home, community services, nursing homes, which is more comprehensive, right? And sometimes in assisted living. Sometimes people go to these independent living, facilities. They literally rent a place there for independent. But then gradually, as they get older, they may need some assistance, so they move to an assisted living, right?
So they can transition.
They transition. And sometimes the facilities themselves have that assisted living as well. And then if things get worse, then they may go to a nursing home. And there's also board and care homes and continuing care retirement communities. So there is a whole structure, but for pay. There is a whole structure in our country that can easily take care of you for long-term care, but you better have a lot of money. If not, you're not just going to be able to afford it. So that is who are the caregivers and where this happens. Let me give you some numbers, review some numbers with you about long-term care. Every day, over 48 million family caregivers care for loved ones. 48 million. And this is over $60 billion worth of care. And think about that. So the care that we freely give out of love for our loved ones, 48 million provided daily, and that would equate to about $600 billion. Without them providing that long-term care, the health and long-term care systems would collapse. So there's a lot of caregiving going on by family members, right? But this is it takes a toll emotionally is very physical and obviously financial. So there's a lot of things to do on this matter legislatively, because again, insurance companies do not cover long-term care. So I sometimes refer to it like an orphan child, right? It's like this care that the insurance businesses, they just don't want to deal with it, right? And there's some things that have been done, but it's not easy. How to pay for long-term care? Well, first, Medicare has a very limited, which is, you could not even consider it long-term care, but after like a hospital stay, they may cover you skilled nursing facility care.
For only a short amount of time.
And then the VA may have some, and Medicaid, and I just want to spend the rest of the time in 2 points. Medicaid and the long-term care insurance policy that people could buy. They could buy an insurance policy for the future, but the earlier they buy it, the cheaper it's going to be. Once you get to a certain age, it's going to be very high, the premium, and then that basically consists of giving you an amount per day. Once you reach, if you ever need that long-term care, the policy, all they're going to do is give you an amount per day, for you to pay for the caregiver or the caregiving that the person needs. But let me just say a little something about Medicaid. We are familiar with ALTCS. That's healthcare, right? But ALTCS is a different program called Arizona Long-Term Care Services. This is for long-term care, but you have to qualify. They will see your income and your resources. But it's definitely an option. When you have a little bit more resources and income, they call it spend down. So you could spend down what you have, in other words, use it for the care, and then to be able to come to that level, and then they can approve ALTCS, and then you're covered. That would be
based on financial need.
Definitely. But you have to be a really, really low income. And like I said, the concept of spending down, if you're just a little bit over, they expect you to use your money to take care of you, and then once you reach that the maximum level, then they'll approve it. But that's an option. And I think it's fair, because if you have money, you're supposed to pay for it. Some people don't like the fact that the government can come and recover some of the nursing home type of care from your house, if you have one, when you pass. Mm-hmm. And there is such a thing, so they have to consider that. But so that would be basically the choices, right? You pay for it. A loved one, ALTCS could be, and then the policy, the long-term care insurance policy that people can buy. And they have to just look into it, and again, you're going to pay a premium for literally all your life. And then when you need it, if you happen to need it, then the insurance policy will provide an amount for you to pay the person or the entity who's taking care of you. In a nutshell, Irma, that is long-term care insurance and the concept in general of long-term care.
In closing, what would you like people to think about?
Ideally, it's good for people to buy a policy, especially when they are young. That would be ideal. So that would be the best option. But they have to really, really read the fine print, know exactly what's going on. If not, we're just going to default into family members caring for loved ones.
Thank you, David, and hopefully somebody gained something from this.
I hope so too, and I think so. And we're ready to address a new series on the next show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Of course.
Well, this was important information, either for yourself or somebody in your family. Please do your research. Please ask questions. This is something you might need very soon. This is Irma from AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, with David Parraluna and Arizona Barrio Stories, saying goodbye and thank you, and we will see you soon.